on the social media. And what has happened is there has been a dramatic advancement and innovation in terms of the complexity of technology. So this massive increase in terms of capability and accessibility has created a major influence on the daily lives of each and every individual, and especially the young ones, especially the youth. There's a major influence. Some of the parents, in fact, relate this to the introduction of video games way back in 1970. And many adults today fear the potential negative impact of social media, particularly the internet gaming and the apps that are floating around on the younger generation. And as we all know, in the rise of society's increasing dependency on technology, most of the experts consider youth as one of the most vulnerable populations. And as young people begin to navigate the systems of society while developing their own identity, what is happening is they are caught in the crossfire between the desire to be present and also between the need to ensure that they are able to effectively respond to the exigencies. So keeping this aspect in mind, is there a way that we as stakeholders within the society can change the system so that we'll be able to help them? One is to accompany them in use of technology for something which is positive, something which will create a transformation, something which is more of enabler in nature, and which will also help to become learners and active agents and promoters of change. So keeping this in mind, we are really fortunate to have three eminent panelists, each one of them who have been working with youth, closely interacting with youth, and come with a lot of knowledge and experience. And we will go to each one of them. But before we go to the panelists, this is an opportunity for all the participants to take part in the poll questions. And I request Yogesh to please share the first poll question, which will be followed by a brief address by our first panelist, Shabri Bhattacharya. So this poll question is open to everyone except the panelist. So friends, please select the option which you think is most relevant. So the first poll question is, we need to learn to work with social media as a tool along with our youth. There are four options, so you need to select the one which is most relevant. To constructively advance our spiritual and material progress, to constructively advance only our material progress, to constructively advance only spiritual progress, none of the above. So the question, I repeat again, we need to learn to work with social media as a tool along with our youth. Two, so there are four options. Please select one option which is most relevant or which you think is right. The option of taking in the poll is only for the participants. So most of the participants feel that we need to work with social media as a tool to constructively advance our spiritual and material progress. 60% of the participants feel, and 40% have a different opinion, that they feel none of the above. Okay, that's fine. Thank you, Yogesh. So it's really a pleasure for us to have three eminent panelists with us. So the first panelist is Shabri Bhattacharya, and it's my privilege and honor to introduce Shabri Bhattacharya. Shabri has done her master's in counseling from the United States of America, and she has been associated with the different institutions, both at the international level, at the national level, teaching, guiding, counseling, accompanying, and also creating programs related to counseling, related to mindfulness, and especially during COVID, she was pretty much involved in deployment of these courses across the country. Shabri is the project manager with Parivartan, and as we all know, Parivartan is one of the gold standard, I would say one of the best institution today in Bangalore, and it is also recognized as one of the authentic and most proficient counseling centers, not only for youth, but also for other areas as well. And Shabri has been associated with Parivartan since more than a decade, since 2010. So with this rich experience and background, I now invite Shabri to please share her views, and then we'll go further in the program. Shabri, over to you, please.
Okay. Thank you, Dinesh, for your kind words. It's my pleasure to be here today. I initially, when this topic came to me, and Malini, who's the director at Parivartan, asked me if I would be willing to attend this meeting today, it was something that I was very interested in, because this is, as you know, over the last year and a half, social media, internet, has become a part of all of our lives in such an important way. And just with lockdown and COVID, especially with the youth, what we've been seeing has been so relevant, because up until now, I mean, I'm a parent myself. I have two younger children, not necessarily in the social media using group yet, but up until now, as counselors or as parents and school teachers always used to say, avoid social media, avoid internet, avoid screen time. And it was seen as this bad thing to affect children negatively. Montessori schools, for instance, used to have the approach that zero screen time is what is important. And almost overnight, we've had to make a shift in our attitude towards social media, towards online screen time versus with Zoom. It has become a part of all of including our children's lives. And this is something that it has been a rapid shift. And the effect of that is something that I think is fully not, something that we're fully aware of yet. But some of the things that we've been seeing through this, right? And some of the things that we know is that teenagers are social animals, and young adults, as we know, are at that stage where they're interacting with the world and learning their place in it through society, through that's when they form their significant relationships outside of the home. And for teenagers, especially in schools that we've been seeing, their stage of development is that they're forming their relationships and learning about their own identity only through contact with peers. And what has happened over the last year and a half especially is that contact face-to-face with peers has not happened. And while we would have liked that and preferred that, it's not possible. So most parents have almost resigned themselves to the fact that they do not want to restrict social media access as much as they would have wanted to before. And with young adults, or people, especially in urban areas, one of the things at Parivartan we've been seeing is that, at least with a lot of the workplace interventions that I have conducted over this time, is that young adults have been really isolated, where they would have been going out after work, hanging out with peers, hanging out with colleagues, seeing their managers. This is a really strange time, and being alone in a city, or being relatively alone in a city, and having to form relationships at work, or what people would have taken for granted before. So as a course, as a effect of what has happened over the last year, our relationship with social media and screen time and devices has changed. And I thought some of your cartoons earlier were particularly funny because they reflect really what we had been seeing. Now, the issue with this, as we all may be aware of, is that there's a reason why we had thought that social media or screen time would have been bad, because what happens is it fundamentally changes the way our mind processes information. Right? So when we get used to looking at a screen, it affects the glare of the screen, affects the way we sleep, affects the way we feel. Like it can make us feel agitated at times, and just the nature of staring at a screen. Now then, if we take away the nature of the programs or the softwares or the social media platforms and apps that are available to us, they are designed to grab our attention. Right. So, and this is something that recently Facebook again has been in the news for this, that there have been various organizations studying this in recent years, especially to see how it affects, and as Dinesh mentioned, I've been running mindfulness workshops for corporates. It affects our mindfulness. So the way that we look at a phone, or that an app is designed to ping you every time you get a notification, or if someone likes something that you posted, or has commented on something, immediately your phone lights up and our attention is drawn to that. So what happens is our mind is constantly in two places. Right now, as I'm speaking, I'm conscious of the fact that my phone is next to me and it has not lit up, but it's something that would unconsciously, even if I wasn't really aware of it, would be drawing my attention there. And that really affects our ability to be present in any relationship, in any workplace interaction, or anything that would have otherwise never have come into play. Like ordinarily, if we were having this webinar or a seminar face to face, I would be feeling your energy. I would be getting some sort of response and reacting to that, as human beings have traditionally done. Right. So this is a very different space that we're occupying right now. So some of the things that we need to be aware of, right? So there are certain people who argue that children should never have had access to this, because it fundamentally rewires the way their brains work, right? So if they're anyway feeling low, right, the Facebook or Twitter or even Google is designed to show them things that reinforce what they're already feeling. So if someone is already depressed or anxious, what's going to happen is they're going to keep showing them things that it's going to make them more depressed or anxious. And so that's the way the algorithm is designed. Now, if that's all I'm seeing, I don't know if you've ever noticed it. Like the moment if you're on a advertisement somewhere and you click something, the next day you're Google all those ads on the side, or your emails will be coming in saying that, showing you things that are similar. Now, if we're not paying attention, we'll automatically just see those things over and over again. And to give you an example, over the last year and a half in these corporate workshops, one of the things that we've talked about extensively is doom scrolling, right? That I'm sure most of us here have been alarmed by what is happening around us. So we click news articles, we watch videos talking about the things that make us most anxious or scared, and that keeps coming. And what happens is we keep watching it, and more of those things keep getting suggested to us. Am I running out of time? And just
no, please go ahead. Please go ahead. Yes.
So what ends up happening is, if we're feeling anxious, which is, I've had to tell a lot of people to stop, get off your phone, stop reading these things, because it's just going to keep you up at night. It's going to make you feel worse. It's going to make you feel more depressed or anxious if you already are. And as a self-care routine, one of the things that we've been very conscious of is, making sure that people don't do this, right? Now, when we're looking at young people who've been at home alone, or this has been their primary source of entertainment, or there are things that keep them, they don't necessarily have so many household responsibilities or other people at home that they have to take care of. And for teenagers who are already susceptible and their brains are developing, it does affect them. Now, if they keep getting these pings, right, that they're a topic of their attention has come into their inbox, or if they're like seeing something, then automatically they'll see it. One of the things that to keep in mind, it fundamentally it acts almost like an addictive thing, right? So if we get dopamine from what we traditionally think of as drugs or alcohol, these social media apps are designed to give you a little bit of a hit of dopamine every time you see a ping or you see someone liking your post. And so this is something that we are trained as people to like things that make us feel good, right? So keeping that in mind, it's something we have to be mindful of. So limiting our use, when in today's day and age, it's almost impossible to cut it out entirely. So the last few things I'd like to talk about, right? So there are things that the youth, particularly, and teenagers and particularly, are targeted by cyberbullying. So if we have young teenagers, or if we're parents of teenagers, we have to keep these things in mind. That safety, they're vulnerable to other people accessing them that we may not know about. And one of the things I used to talk about in schools quite a lot is young people or teenagers are far more internet savvy, or far more technically savvy than most of their parents are. And so sometimes even monitoring what they're doing online is quite challenging. And yet it opens it up to them being, people from all ages, everywhere in the world accessing them. And it's something that we have to be aware of.
Thank you very much, Shabri. For the knowledge of participants, Shabri actually is one of the, I would say, leading authority in this space because of her kind of experience and the kind of exposure that she has had over the last decade. Not only in India, but even overseas as well. And most of them would go to Shabri when there is no hope. And, she's the hope actually for many of the youth today, either on the personal aspect or on the social side, on the professional side. And sometimes I've seen, she also counsels young adults on the marital, challenges as well. And some of the insights that she brought out is very startling because of the use of AI, especially. I think AI is able to map the interest of the participant or somebody who's using more of social media, and encourages the user to get tempted to more options. So it automatically pops up more options so that we have more online time. The other aspect which she very, very beautifully brought out, that though we may be in a crowd, but we are still alone. This feeling of loneliness is creating a major issue among the youth, because most of the youth seem to have more friends on the social media and other digital platform, but on a face-to-face, on a personal interaction, there is a challenge, which many of them face. And the third aspect is about the accessibility, the quality of time, the content, and how much each of these influence the behavior of the youth themselves. Now, all of these are highly critical, because after a certain amount of time, they actually become a part of our habit. And it becomes, the nature that we tend to do it on a day-to-day basis. So which is why it's very critical that either as parents or maybe as family members, we constantly need to introspect ourselves, because even as adults, we ourselves are sometimes compelled, maybe either to, as she said, to respond to some query, or to check on the app, or to read certain news which keeps popping up. So we also want to keep ourselves constantly updated. And the point which she made is that we cannot be away unless we go to mountain and sit there and switch off all our devices. We can't be away. We are living in this world, so we need to be in touch with the social media. But then, how do we regulate that, and how do we use that? So, thank you very much, Shabri. There are certain questions which are coming. I'll ask you maybe post the third panelist during our Q&A session. But extremely insightful, and thank you very much. And really, the kind of work which Parivartan has done, and you as an individual, you have the programs that you have laid over the period of time is extremely commendable. And I think each one of us should be aware of the kind of work that Parivartan has been doing over the last many years to benefit all citizens of Bangalore and maybe participants from other countries as well. Thank you very much. Thank you, Shabri. So, Yogesh, can we go to the next poll question, please, for the participants? Shabri, there is one question which I'll address it during the end of the session. Yeah, sorry. Yes, the next poll question is for the participants. As young people begin to navigate the systems of society while developing their own identities, talent, spiritual perceptions, and power of expression, many fear that they will also fall prey to, there are four options. They'll become more materialistic, they'll get addicted to social media, they will build more of virtual relationships, or all of the above. So there are four options. You can select one of the options which you feel is closer to reality, the one which you are experiencing. Will the youth become more materialistic? Will they get addicted to social media? Will they build more of virtual relationships? Or it's a combination of all three? 40% of the participants feel they'll get addicted to social media. 17% feel that the youth will become more materialistic, and around equal percentage of participants, around 50%, feel that there is a likelihood that the youth can develop all the three, become more materialistic, get addicted to social media, as Shabri said, and also build virtual relationships. Okay, thank you, Yogesh. Thank you very much. Thank you. We'll go to our next panelist, Sneha. And, it's very, very interesting because Sneha comes from a technology background. And Sneha was Sneha, can you please switch on your video, please? Camera, please. Yes. Sneha was the senior product manager at Make My Trip, right? At you're on mute. Make My Trip. Yes, makemytrip.com. But something which is very interesting is her conviction. Her conviction that social media can be used to do something positive for the community itself, for the humanity itself. And she has been trying multiple initiatives, right from a small initiative of encouraging somebody to collaborate with another NGO, or encouraging youth of today to maybe celebrate any happy occasion in a very different way by contributing to a cause, or using social media to amplify some of the initiatives which other institutions are doing. It's very, very commendable because all of these have been extremely selfless. But the most commendable one, Sneha, I think the whole of Bangalore knows you now, is because during the COVID times, the covidmeals.com, it actually created a revolution in Bangalore, because you are able to touch upon the most vulnerable population within the city. And because of this learning and experience, you are also able to expand in other major metros as well. And that was something very phenomenal that helped in providing meals to thousands of people who got impacted by COVID using the social media network that you created. So, with this brief introduction, I hand it over to Sneha and request her to please address. Sneha, over to you. You're on mute. Yes.
Thank you, Dinesh, for having me here and for a lovely introduction. So as Shabri was saying, a couple of points to just add to what she said, like her, I also have a little one at home. He's just 4.5, and he also goes to a Montessori, and we were also on that. We got the same sort of instructions from the school that no screen time for children, absolutely nothing. But not just during the pandemic, where I agree that parents sort of became a little lenient when it came to time on social media, or using video or using the apps, etc. But we were sort of and all credit to my husband, he actually made me realize that when our son sees Peppa Pig, for example, he doesn't necessarily, it's not a bad thing necessarily, because what he learns is many important things that either we might not be able to teach him because of the bandwidth, the constrained bandwidth that we have, and B, also, for example, going on picnics with other children or sharing, etc., which most kids sort of don't learn these days because it's just a single child, or now during the pandemic when kids are not even going to the school. So we realize that there's also a positive impact on children and hence the youth also going forward because of being connected or just being online. That said, I think if you read up a little more or do your research, most of research papers say that about 60% of the parents don't even know where their children are spending time on social media or what they are doing using their devices. So if you sort of, bridge that gap, or if you fix that, if you're more involved with your child, if you sort of see the content together or expose them to the right content, I think that responsibility lies a lot on parents. And it is from the very beginning that the onus lies on us, and it's our responsibility to expose them to the right kind of, say, websites or tools or apps, whatever is available. And once you give them the direction, you can be sure that they are not entirely lost or just absorbing or hooked on to the wrong part of social media. So we believe in that, and that's what we try to do with our son as well. Of course, he's very young, but once you give them the right direction, that's what happens. And I strongly believe in that social media has a lot of power to do good, which is why, so I would maybe like to focus a lot more on that aspect of it, because, any article that we read, of course, we see a lot of negativity that, social media only has negative impact, and there is bullying and imposter syndrome and all of these things that come as a part of that. But for me, it's been a very different kind of experience using social media. So I've been able to, like you said, use it to my advantage to do the right set of things. But it's not me. I'm an adult, and I've used social media for some time, and I come from that kind of a background. But I'll tell you some of the very beautiful things that I saw during the second wave, which is that teenagers or school-going children who couldn't really help with most of the stuff that the world was going through, arranging for oxygen, medicines, etc. But I saw that so many teenagers or kids came forward with, someone made dolls, crochet dolls, someone did some embroidery, or someone made some artworks. If someone was good with sketching, they came out and said that we will draw a caricature for you, or we will draw a sketch for you, and all the funds that we collect, we will donate it for the COVID relief. And that was very, very heartwarming to see so many children, so many students coming forward to do this. So I've seen a very, very different side of social media on how it affects kids in a positive way also. So, now I know that this teenager has a Facebook page or an Instagram page, but I know that this is being run to promote her crochet, through which she's collecting funds and giving to, say, COVID relief or any other cause. So that's sort of a positive impact if we can amplify that. And what happens is that if one person in, say, your class starts doing this, or in your batch starts doing this, then you get inspired, because then not everyone has this. People are not sure of how much they can do or what they can do. But when you see someone else doing it, then you realize, oh, okay, she's selling crochet dolls. Maybe I can start selling my brownies. So so that's how it starts happening. And I also started seeing this translating offline, where some of the children who had started selling brownies for COVID relief, now they became a part of some of the markets that happen in Bangalore. So it also gives them that kind of access. Then again, the other thing that sort of resonates very closely with me is I grew up in a small town. I grew up in Ajmer, and then later I was in Jaipur. And what I realized is that the colleges, schools, the students there have very limited exposure to things. So, for example, when I was in college, I didn't know something like a freelance writing existed. Right. And while I might not necessarily want to do it for money, it was more about my creative expression, or, something that I could do. But some people also need it for money, especially, students who don't come from families who can afford high college fees and whatever. It's great to have something like this for them. So only when they are online, they are connected, they are exposed to social media, is when they would get exposed to such things and learn. And it might become a source of revenue, it might just become a source of creative expression, or connecting with like-minded people. So that opens up a whole new world of possibilities for those students. So which is why I choose to sort of focus on the positive side of social media, that we tend to overlook, because we are always like, no screen time. Because so I'll be honest, I also worry about my son getting hooked to the iPad or to the laptop, but we sort of, like I said, it's our responsibility, right? So we make him understand that, look, it is 30 minutes for you. You do it for 30 minutes and then we'll do this. Or sometimes, if he's been exceptionally good, or we're just in a happy mood, we'll sort of reward him with a little extra. But it all depends on how much we are doing. And I think one very important thing that I realized was that, just like, people say that kids pick up, or teenagers pick up on what you're doing, like they learn by emulation. So it's if they see us being hooked to our phones constantly, and like Shabri said, the doom scrolling and everything, they will get used to it. Any 6-year-old doesn't know how to open an app or how to open a YouTube and, just go play Candy Crush or whatever. They see us doing it. And that's when they latch onto it. And then, I mean, if someone is to be blamed, it is us. Of course, there's no denying on the negative things that happen, but I choose to focus on the positive, I think predominantly based on what my experience has been. So that's about it.
Thank you very much, Sneha. Extremely useful. And some of the data points that you pointed out, that almost 60% of the parents really don't know what their children are up to, or what they use social media for, is extremely alarming. The other aspect is how it becomes a part of a habit for children by seeing the adults and their parents is very true, because children, the youth tend to learn by what the parents do and what they and through their actions. Yes, it's extremely, I think it's extremely impactful and meaningful. The other aspect is the how you have enabled many of the youth through some of the positive actions. That is, even if somebody has a talent of creating an artwork, or maybe making a doll or a crochet or anything which is a little different, I think that sense of fulfillment you have brought in the youth today through the power of social media, through the power of expression, and through the power of connecting. That itself, even if it's a very small act for them, but I think there is a sense of achievement. There is a sense of fulfillment, because in the world, many times we see there is a lot of negativity.
Right.
But if somebody is exposed to the positive side, he or she, the youth especially, are encouraged to do more and to build on that. And as you rightly said, maybe some of them have now taken it as a profession itself.
Yeah.
Realize probably their interest lies in creating or in developing some of these, and then also make it more of a business case itself.
Right.
Yes, yeah, extremely useful. The other aspect I liked was about this concept of reward and punishment. Generally we reward a child with a goodie, but you say you reward a child with a youth with an extra maybe extra minute or few minutes of
Peppa Pig.
usage of social media. I think this is extremely insightful, and which I really liked it. And there are certain questions which have come on the chat. I'll ask you maybe at the end of the session. But this COVID meals, I think all of us, we express our gratitude, because the way you used social media and the way you helped in reaching out to thousands of vulnerable people when everybody was literally worried, and for the right reasons. But then, you created that platform, and you are a great enabler, and you have created that possibility that it is possible, given the circumstances, given the challenge, there is an option. And social media was rightly leveraged by you, and we hope you'll continue to support all those who are in difficulty. Thank you. Thank you. Yogesh, can we go to the next poll question, please, before we go to Ekta? Okay, the next poll question is, this is open to the participants. In today's world, is it possible to live without social media? Okay. So there are 4 options. Yes, it will save time and increase productivity in work. No, it will create communication gap. Yes, it will make people physically more active. No, it is required to remain updated. Okay, in today's world, is it possible to live without social media? In fact, when this WhatsApp came, I actually tried, avoiding using WhatsApp, but then I realized it is not possible to live without a WhatsApp. Okay, so most of the participants feel that it will create a communication. Okay, it will. One is create a communication gap, and equal number of participants feel that we will not be updated with what is happening around us, whether at workplace or in our communities or with institutions. So social media seems to be the norm where we all need to learn to use it more effectively. Thank you, Yogesh. Thank you very much. Thank you. We'll go to our third panelist, Ekta Sawant. And thank you, Ekta, for joining. Ekta has her master's from one of the prestigious institutions in Bangalore, the Azim Premji University. And she has been working in the area of development and in the social space. And prior to that, she did her triple honors from the Christ University. Ekta has been interacting with youth right from her school days, college days. She has been working very closely with youth and trying to also align their energies to do something positive for the society and also to constructively contribute towards the progress of the institution and of the community itself. So with this brief introduction, I will request you, Ekta, to go ahead and share in brief, and also if she wants to present something, she's welcome to do that. Ekta, over to you, please.
Thank you, Mr. Dinesh, for the lovely introduction and inviting me. It's really an honor to share this platform with Sneha and Shabri, both established in their own fields and have done so much, especially in the last 1 year during COVID. So I've just made a brief presentation just so, in case it helps people to follow. When we talk about youth and social media, it's a topic, worth debating really, because we don't know whether it's good or bad. And the internet is, dramatically reshaping patterns of communication and information sharing, at the personal level, at professional level, and as well as at the societal level. Now, it becomes very important that on social media then, to think that what are we sharing, what are we consuming? And it also, there's some benefit in looking at how social media has evolved over time. And although today we think social media is, on our phone, we have these several apps that we use, but there have been different forms of social media, and the situation we face today was also the situation back then. And just to share a brief, I won't go into details of it because this is all available on internet. But when we look at the history of social media, right, we can spend anywhere between 1 to 2 to 3 hours a day. And this is people who have full-time jobs, and I can speak from my own experience also, that we spend a lot of time on social media. And the beginning can really be traced, right from the 1800s, and when militarization was happening, when the world wars took place, and then more recently, when we go a couple of decades back, we start seeing the emergence of internet itself, and then how probably my generation cannot relate, but the older generations will relate how blogs were a thing, and if somebody had a blog, it was probably one of the coolest thing to have, and it was a way of disseminating your own thoughts, ideas about what is happening around you. And then came these, micro blogging sites and these different sites like Orkut, and these different sites came up, and then eventually we also had the email, right? And those mailing lists, I don't know, but today I still have 2-3 people who share those every morning very religiously, those long emails with different font colors and font sizes about some story of, somebody. But that is how, we started sharing with the world about what we were thinking. And then, of course, Facebook comes, and Facebook back then, but now even it's very problematic, right? It's not just about the time spent, but also I think Shabri emphasized on it, that how it is affecting our, decision-making skills and, the kind of data that is being collected by it. And then there are, of course, many apps like, Twitter. So in 2010, Twitter actually put out the statistics that there was 750 tweets per second being posted. And I think a decade later, now that we think of it, this number it's phenomenal then. And then there was Snapchat, there's Instagram, which came. about. And these, when we see, became more from text, we go to visual, right? We start seeing more things than reading more things. And that has its own advantages and disadvantages. And, we're not even accounting for, let's say, TikTok, WhatsApp, Telegram, Reddit, which has now come in. And the whole today, the point at which we stand is, this whole idea about what is true and what is false. And this question still, lingers in our mind as and when we consume, social media. Now, what I wanted to emphasize is that how is this social media really impacting the life of humanity? And we see that, societies have woken up to the reality that internet can be a platform for hate speech, and that leads to violence, and I think we have plenty of examples in recent. We don't even need to go back to even last year. Even if we look at last week, we will find instances. Then there is, widespread proliferation of social media that has given, it's like a platform we have created for people to come and, spread hatred. Then it also normalizes violence and hateful actions. Previously we had to wait for a newspaper to see what happened, the previous day, whether it was, some killings or some kind of violence, terrorism, or some kind of any disturbing event. But today it just takes probably within the event, like from the time the event has occurred, it probably just takes 5 to 10 minutes for it to come out. And even before, like when we track, I work in the media space, even before a publication publishes what has happened, it is out there on Twitter and Facebook. And very often we see the news is citing a particular tweet or a Facebook post. That becomes a source of primary information. Now, what is happening is that, there's a value system, which these technologies are using. And that value system is not necessarily the value system on which we as humans operate. They don't over there see the certain kind of, beliefs, values with which we operate. And it has, these questions of privacy, misinformation, social isolation have now, started. Increasingly, people are talking about it. And a lot of people, especially, let's say children, youth, even the elderly, and then those who haven't had the opportunity to, access education, they have all been affected because they are the hands of, social media. One click and you don't know what is going to happen. And there are quite a few movies, there was a Netflix documentary last year, I think called The Social Dilemma, which breaks down this. A couple of months back, there's a Malayalam movie called Home, which I think everybody should watch because it really beautifully explains that how social media not only affects our own individual space, but also our families and the people, the community that surrounds us. Now, when we look at the nature of social media, we usually only look at it in a negative way. And I like how Sneha actually said that it's not all that negative, it's not bad. If we decide to use it in a positive way, we can. And the youth today especially are at this juncture where, they have to think that, what, where is our world headed and what is my place in that, So the technology, it connects us, but it distracts us, it monetizes us. So there are, for instance, Facebook, Instagram, every click, every scroll is actually adding money into somebody's pocket. We are just spending our time and our we are clicking or, tapping. Then it divides us, So there's a widespread propaganda of different kinds. There's political propaganda, ideological propaganda. There's, materialism and capitalism, which is trying to tap into the younger population. Then fourth is that it controls us, it controls our time, our space. It manipulates us, the kind of decisions we are trying to make. We very instantly try to, because it's a fraction of a second that, you like something and people think that you're supporting a particular cause or ideology. And sixth is that it polarizes us, it becomes the question about us and them, oh, they are doing this, we are not doing this, or, So these are the things. So technology is good. It has its own pros, but this is also the other side of it. Now, when we look at, from one of the concepts that has brought clarity to this analysis of how we see the present condition from the Baha'i teachings, it says that humanity is reaching its collective maturity. And this collective maturity is where people are slowly beginning to realize that, that they are all ultimately one. Their goal is one, which is, to unite mankind and to bring about spiritual and material prosperity in the world. And this maturity, it will involve disintegration and integration, because when today we talk about oneness, about, unity, people think it is a utopian idea. It is impossible. Because how can good things happen? There's war happening. There are these crises, and But when we need to look at these as two parallel processes, there is disintegration and integration. So it's not right to say that there's only destruction happening around. There is construction. I mean, positive steps being taken, and both Sneha and Shabri also, highlighted how during COVID, youth came forward. Several platforms used internet for public welfare. And then the third thing is that, it's this realm of social media. It's really online, right? We can't touch it. We don't know what is happening there, but it's both, real and imagined at the same time. And when we see, there's this very strong desire to promote our own point of view. And there's an eagerness which has to be seen, so before someone else says something, posts something else, I want to do it. And this, it becomes a very harmful pattern. What we don't intend to do, we unintentionally actually end up doing it. And it fuels differences of, opinion between groups. It perpetuates disagreements. There is, it becomes difficult to form any kind of consensus. And, if one person's contribution seems, provocative or objectionable, reacting to it may have the effect of, actually strengthening their cause, So we think that reacting to it might help, change their thinking, but no, actually we are adding more to the fire. So this has really posed, challenges to youth. So from time spent on social media to their mental and spiritual well-being, there's a moral decay, the kind of things we are watching or we are accessing through social media. But at the same time, we also see that the whole, pandemic, it has made us realize that, we are not only spectators in this whole thing, we can also drive change through it. It has made us question, what does it mean to be a good citizen? It has made us conscious about, the inequalities that exist in our society, about gender, about extreme poverty, about these things. So, new conceptions now we need to start looking at, which are based on, on organic unity of mankind, need to recognize nobility of the human soul, that everybody is ultimately noble, and it is external forces, these negative forces that affect us, but within we are noble beings. And there needs to be a twofold moral purpose, where individuals, they want to develop, they want to drive change, but they don't want to do this in isolation. They want to do this with their communities, with their families. And youth must guard themselves against, condemnatory attitude which stems from these public debates. Very quickly, the kind of language we use, foul language, negative language, demeaning people, backbiting, gossiping, saying hateful things. We need to quickly, get over this, because it is ultimately us who are falling into the trap. So every word that is spoken, every word that is written, it has its own spirit and meaning. And when we don't put it in a particular context, so it is said with some kind of hatred or some kind of agenda, it becomes an evil. So there's from the Baha'i quotation that one word may be likened unto fire, unto another unto light, and the influence which both exert is manifest in the world. So we can't say that, oh, I said this, that's why something happened. It's actually, in Hindi, they say that tali do haath se bajti hai. So you cannot say that you didn't do it, but actually you did play a role into it. So we really need to now start rethinking the kind of communication we are a part of, and need to uphold the oneness of humanity and avoid this mindset of us and them, and the principles of we need to uphold the principle of consultation and necessary decorum, so it's not only, we don't have to be nice in our boardrooms, in our meetings, in our family, while having meals, but even social media, why can't we take these same values to those spaces? So just some parting thoughts that, one is to recognize the mobility of, humankind, of the human soul, that we are all capable of doing so much more. And also paving way for oneness and justice, because social media can be used for a lot of things, but how do we really use it to amplify causes, amplify initiatives and work that is done for positive forces to build the world that we want to see.
Thank you very much, Ekta. It was an excellent presentation, and you had put a lot of hard work to create this presentation. There's a lot of research material which has gone into it, but it was extremely useful, very relevant. And also thank you for sharing the landscape and history of the evolution of the social media itself. Because for most of us, the social media has started just a few years back. But I think, as you rightly pointed out, right from 1840 onwards, there is social media in one way or other way, and that seems to have played around in these social spaces as well. The other aspect which you rightly pointed out, how social media can either glorify or it can help in creating a positive impact. So sometimes if it's a negative impact, a hate or a prejudice, that can create a wildfire. But on the other hand, if there is something which is for a developmental cause, that also can probably encourage hundreds and thousands to work in that space. And what was also really touching is the power of expression and the power of word itself. And as you described, maybe the way we perceive the word can have significant impact and meaning. Somebody can see word as fire, somebody can see word, the word that we speak or the words that we use as milk itself. And the other aspect of our effort to think of men as noble beings, of human beings as noble. So essentially, your thought that if we start looking each one of us, each one who's around us, and everyone in the society as human beings with nobility, then maybe the thought, the perception, the action itself will change. So the reaction will change, and consequently, as you rightly said, we will be more conscious in our action itself and how we really represent ourselves, because it can either be of use or it can create certain challenges which can impact the whole world itself. And the other aspect, what you touched upon, was really touching, that using social media, can we think of creating a united way of living, a united way of loving, a united way of learning, and also moving in a world which otherwise is utopian in nature, but in reality, it is possible. And it is possible only through our actions, when we treat each one with respect, when there is a transformation within the youth itself, when there's a change in the value system itself, when each one of us, including the youth, and as the other two co-panelists also shared, the parents and the youth themselves, when they imbibe some of these spiritual qualities which will make each one of us as agents of change and as agents of transformation. So very, very useful. The way you structured your presentation was very impressive. And thank you for your time and effort. And there are some questions for you on the chat already, but I'll ask you at the end of the session. Yogesh, we will not have the next poll question because a lot of questions have come on the chat. So Sneha, the first question has come to you, that what was the motivation of using social media during COVID in providing meals to the vulnerable population, especially in Bangalore? So what really motivated you? I think that's what the participant wants to know.
Okay, so I have been doing some of the other form of social work and been involved with various causes right from a very young age. And I learned it from my dad. He in fact, he didn't even take promotions in his jobs, etc., because he was very clear he wanted to be there and continue with his social work. So it's not that anything specifically during COVID times triggered me to do this project. It just came as a very natural thing that ever since the first wave started, not just during the second wave, it was a very natural thing for me to just think of how I could help in this situation. And so even in the first wave, we were doing lots of initiatives around, say, food, or, working with orphanages or schools that had run out of funds, or just, helping the migrant laborers who were traveling or their kids who were traveling. And that's where, I've been doing a lot of social work. If you ask me, why did I use social media? It is because, we are normal people. We are not any celebrities to, talk about it in any print media or any other channels to get, visibility or pull people together. So I just used whatever channels I had. I did not have, I still don't have thousands of followers. I'm no celebrity, but I just said that, I'm anyways doing this. Let me put it out there. And so one good thing about Instagram or anywhere else is these things called hashtags that you use. So if you use a hashtag, then more people can discover. If you tag certain pages, so for example, for Bangalore, you'll have an LBB, or you'll have WhatsApp Bangalore, or lots of these pages. If you tag them and they sort of notice, they will help you amplify your information. So it was more about using what I had at hand. And till date, none of my posts have got 1,500 or 2,000 whatever likes or responses. But it was that one post that I did that, I can provide meals, which got visible because that was the need of the hour. So more people shared, and that's how I was able to reach everyone. All the other media coverage or, newspapers talking about it or whatever, it didn't matter to me, and it happened much later than this. But we were able to move things right from that very first post. So that's what I was trying to explain as the power of social media and how you could use it to do good.
Thank you, Sneha. Thank you. Very impressive. Thank you. Shabri, the next question is to you. Let me read it out. Yeah, College students have classes online. They are depressed and lonely and are finding it very challenging being alone at home while their parents are at work. What alternatives would you suggest for these first-year students? So, Shabri, this question has come to you. I'll repeat the question. College students have classes online. They are depressed and lonely and are finding it very challenging being alone at home while their parents are at work. What alternatives would you suggest for these first-year students?
I think looking at having to be at home alone when you're in your first year of college is something that we've had this discussion at Parivartan many times as to looking at, again, stage of development for someone who is looking to go out into the world, meet friends, socialize, go out to pubs, like engage in club activities or drama workshops or whatever they're doing in college. All of that has now changed. Right? So, and for those young, when we think about it in counseling terms, it's pretty much still adolescents to young adults. First year college is just adolescents. This is the time they were looking at being out of school and going to college where they should have had freedom. And this year, or what happened over the last couple of years, is they haven't had that. So it has caused higher incidences of depression, anxiety. This is a global phenomenon. And so some of the things we recommend is try to, for instance, like I know these are poor substitutes for face-to-face interaction, but trying to keep video on as much as possible for any meetings or anything helps. Having regular check-ins with groups of people. We do this for corporates as well, with young adults, helping them, because feedback or things like that are much harder in a space where everything is via Zoom, because you don't get that interpersonal just even a comment from a professor or someone that says, or a classmate. So trying to get that as much as possible. Now that things are opening up, hopefully some amount of socialization will now be possible. But if the depression or anxiety is more, I was just reading recently a statistic from the US, 1/3 of children in the US now have sought mental health support during this time, which is a huge number. In India, we have, counselors are hard to come by at this point because everyone is so swamped. But reaching out for support is something that, and it sometimes just helps to know that you're not alone if you're feeling low, or so either through a counseling setup or, trying to get that peer support in some way can help. But definitely if it's depression, what we call that, please reach out. Parivartan has a free helpline that people can reach out to if needed, and support is available.
Thank you, Shabri. Thank you very much. I think through some simple actions that you mentioned, it is possible to overcome. So one which I realized the importance is switching on the video. Whenever we have these meetings, many times we feel there's a challenge in terms of bandwidth or maybe audio, but you're saying maybe seeing even virtually and interacting, that itself is a first step in our reaching out to somebody and maybe sharing, so that, when we can see, we can feel, at least digitally, but at least we can feel. And the second aspect is reaching out to our peers, our colleagues, and maybe having a chat. And third, of course, as you said, there are institutions like Parivartan, which offer this free services to all those who are currently challenged. Thank you very much. Thank you. Ekta, the third question has come to you. And the question says that you have connected social media, spirituality, and the individual themselves. So in what sense you feel it is important that the adults accompany the youth in this initiative of collaborating with the youth in terms of spiritual development and also learning to use social media effectively?
That's a very interesting question. So there's, why I spoke about spirituality is because, at the end, and I think whatever has happened in the last 1.5 years has really taken a toll on everybody. But at the same time, it helped us realize that there's something beyond all of these struggles and these crises also. There's something we are looking forward to. And when that idea of looking forward to something was kind of interrupted because of the pandemic, we felt upset, enraged. Those who were affected by it, of course, there were so many, as much as it was a disease and a health crisis, it also took a toll on mental health, very heavily on people. And that is where, when we look towards spirituality, and in different forms, people have looked at spirituality. But here we are really looking about what is our purpose of existence. And if that purpose of existence is to transform ourselves and transform in a way that, everything today is looked at, from a physical and material lens, that, what kind of clothes do I wear? How is my body appearance? And, so everybody looks at it from a material, from a physical lens, but nobody looks within. We really have to start, looking at that also, like what kind of language am I using? What are the spaces that I'm interacting with? What am I doing with the education, with the skills, with the talents that I have? Am I using it for, for something constructive to bring about societal transformation? So that is something which has to, which spirituality brings about when you have a higher purpose in life. And of course, that will reflect in our individual life as well as our lives on, social media. And, parents and families play a very important role in supporting the younger ones at home. Because very often when, children and youth, they react to certain things, it's because we sometimes fail to realize that they are also transforming, from childhood to adolescence, from adolescence to youthhood. And these points of transition are extremely, they're very sensitive, very critical in their life. And we kind of look at it as, they are being rebellious. They don't understand, they're trying to fight us, they're back, how dare she back answers to me, that is the kind of thinking which unfortunately most parents have. And sometimes we also can't blame them, because that is how society has, in a way shaped us, and nobody calls out these things, nobody educates us about it. But parents really should sometimes, because the child or the youth reacts, we also, even the parents will equally react. And of course, I'm not a parent, but I'm speaking from my experience of being a child and a youth. Somehow that there has to be a midpoint, where there's a space created for both the children and youth, as well as for parents to speak about what they're feeling, because parents feel like they have been disrespected. Even the younger ones have the same emotion. They feel their space has been violated, So that is really the first thing to support would be to stop and have a conversation, create a safe space within the home, where more than punishments, you kind of, I'm not even asking to reward, but you stop and have a conversation about why a certain behavior or why certain action took place. I think that is the best way to support. And second is also to, if parents could help in identifying certain spaces which are positive for the child and the youth's development. For children, it's whoever has a smartphone, they automatically have no choice, but they get exposed to so many different platforms. But there are many other platforms, which they could probably channelize their energies in a more constructive way. So probably that is something how the parents could assist the younger ones.
Thank you very much, Ekta. It was very inspiring and very interesting, and especially on the self-reflection and also the communication, the trust and the communication, which the youth and the parent need to have mutually. I think that is very important. Recently, I read in one of the social media blogs that the son of a famous actor had to take an appointment every time when he had to meet his father. So they are living in the same house, but for some reason, maybe because of the pressure or the commitment, every time when the son had to meet his father, he had to take a formal, appointment, and then he got few minutes to just to meet his dad. So I agree with you, and I understand, the point that you're sharing. The next chat question is open to all three of you. We'll start with Shabri, then Ekta, and then Sneha. I'll read out this question, and this is from a 19-year-old youth, and she's asking, I am on social media for 2-3 hours a day. I think that I have it in control, but I realized that social media can be very unpredictable. Sometimes I'm very happy when I use it, and sometimes such platforms make me a little sad and depressed. Can you tell me what to do? So we'll start with Shabri, then Ekta, and then Sneha. I request each one of you to please respond, because though this question is from this 19-year-old youth, but I also experience it, and maybe others are also, experiencing this. And it's good to know that what are the steps, or what is the logical, solution to this. So we'll start with Shabri, then Ekta, and then Sneha. Shabri, over to you, please.
So actually what the 19-year-old is experiencing is typical for social media users, because, obviously being liked or being, getting approval. Again, as I said, there's an immediate dopamine hit that happens, and dopamine is the hormone that helps us feel good about things, right? So ordinarily we would get it from other things in life that make us feel good. So exposure, hanging out with friends or doing things that, make us otherwise feel good in life. Now, so it would be natural that you would feel good when using it, but the content, as Ekta had pointed out, is designed to reel us in at some level, and so there will be a lot of things out there that will make us feel bad. Also, the kind of feedback that we get, if we're looking only for those positive hits, then if someone says something critical, or someone says something unkind, which happens a lot, especially for 19-year-olds, that, someone will just off the cuff. And online, unfortunately, human beings, we operate within our rules of kindness, and we tend to follow social norms. When we know the other person, when we can see the other person, when we have now online, we don't know what we're going to get when we put anything out there. So that is design. Now, what we can do, one of the things that I know Ekta had mentioned, the social dilemma. So the Center for Humane Technology is the organization that created that Netflix documentary. They recommend practicing mindfulness when using social media at all times. So use it for the times when you need it, when it's good, when it makes you feel good, but be aware of when it's slipping into something that makes you feel not good. When you start feeling unkind, then cut yourself off. Unfortunately, as human beings, we lose our mindfulness in the face of something that when the dopamine hits come, then we're looking for that. And then so that means trying to get that from other aspects of our life. So sleeping properly, eating well, exercising are the things that can help us in the long run manage not just social media, but all other aspects of our life that make us feel low and depressed, and help us with those same hormones and endorphins that can make us feel good as people.
Thank you very much, Shabri. Ekta, over to you, please.
I have to admit that, even I do spend 2 to 3 hours, sometimes even more. And while my work does involve being on social media for quite some time, but even personally, I spend a lot of time. And it's absolutely not necessary for me to be there. But it's just, designed in such a way that, you just keep scrolling and there's no control over, you think it's 2 p.m. and the next you see it's already 3:15 and you have no track of time. And I think this whole point about at certain moments it makes me feel happy and certain moments it makes me feel sad. at least from my personal experience, what I have noticed is that things which I like, things which I enjoy, and this is very subjective, it might differ for other people. But for example, I'm interested in initiatives that are, for bettering cities. So like, how civic tech or how citizen groups are, coming together, mobilizing their communities to do something to solve issues in their own communities. When I come across some kind of, post, any news or any information related to that, at the end of the day, I feel nice that, oh, okay, I came across something, I learned something. But at the same time, there is so much of, injustice that is happening around. And social media today is used, to educate people about it, and rightly so. I mean, if that is where your young people are, why not educate them on that platform as well? Because many few are going to go and read articles or take the newspaper and read every day. So, but I have, you just suddenly feel very depressed. Like that, I remember, like, more than the first wave, the second wave was, it was really, like, it was exhausting just to see the amount of people who passed away around us, some who we didn't even know. Then there was this one example I would like to take is there's this, I don't know if any of you heard, but Danish Siddiqui, who was a Pulitzer Prize winner, and he was shot dead in Afghanistan by the militants, and apparently it was a mistake or whatever. They didn't, but he was on his own assignment, just seeing the ground reality. And I don't know this person, personally, and nothing. But for the next 1 week, I was just, it had shaken us up that, somebody with absolutely no intent to violate anybody's space suddenly is no more. And these sudden instances are bound to take a toll on our well-being and our mental health. So I think I'd kind of agree with what Shravan, was said, that, we need to find mindfully we need to consume social media.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ekta. Thank you. Sneha, over to you, please.
So firstly, as Shabri and Ekta both said, I am also in the same boat about how we feel being on social media. And sometimes it doesn't even really matter about how much time you're really spending or not. But social media is a place like that where you're even hyper connected, but you feel lonely. You're suddenly happy one moment, but you're not happy another. And it also makes us, like, just being glued to our phones, makes us used to, say, getting instant replies. The moment someone doesn't reply to you for, say, 10 minutes, you're like, oh my God, what happened? Did I do something wrong? Is someone angry? So it's like this, a constant wave of, not even a sine wave, it's worse than that, which is you're happy, you're sad, and you're constantly doubting yourself. So I think one thing sometimes that what has helped me, and again, I think because I come from that background, so I think of it accordingly, which is that you limit your time on, say, each of the apps that you're spending on. And now there are lots of apps, it's inbuilt in the phones that lets you do that. So while it's hard in the beginning and you will feel like, anyways, I can't follow, so what's the point of putting this limit? But just do it for like 3-4 days a week, and it becomes your habit. And simple things like, so for example, I also do therapy, like I take therapy sessions, and my therapist told me that one of the things that most of us do is that before going to bed, we're always on social media. We'll say, oh, quickly, let's check Facebook, let's check Instagram, what's happening. Avoid doing that, because, it's a simple thing, but people say, everyone's, all experts say that what you sleep with is your subconscious mind keeps thinking about that. And that sort of affects your self-esteem also, and how you feel about yourself, what you wake up with. So the next day gets influenced by that, everything. So just do these little things to keep yourself in check. And I don't think you can avoid feeling like that when you're on social media. There's no escaping that. The fact that we are in these times, we are glued to social media, we are glued to our phones, this is bound to happen, but it definitely can be reduced by some of these things.
Thank you very much. Very practical and useful tips, which each one of us we can follow. I think we are almost at the end of the session. We are near close to the time, and there are some other questions, but we'll have to limit ourselves. And I take this opportunity to thank Shabri Bhattacharya, Sneha Vachani, and Ekta Sawant for the time, for sharing their knowledge, for giving practical suggestions, and for the useful tips, and for creating a hope and confidence that proper use and regulation of social media starts with me as an individual, and the youth around us will tend to follow, will tend to emulate that. And also what we have learned is that how social media as a tool itself can be used to create maybe unity, to use for development of our own neighborhoods, of our communities, to also ensure how we are able to accompany our younger folks into something which is creative and for the purpose for which we were all created here today. So extremely grateful to all of you to have accepted our invitation and joined the monthly webinar as panelists. This will be on YouTube. We will also send the YouTube link to all the other participants who are not able to join today, because I personally benefited a lot out of all three of you, and I'm committing that I'll use some of these tips to improve myself, because sometimes I get addicted, and there are others also, I'm sure, who would have benefited. So we'll end this session. Thank you very much. And as Shabri was saying, maybe we'll create a platform where we'll meet personally. I think individual face-to-face, we look forward to host all of you and to meet each one of you along with your families. And thank you again from the bottom of the heart. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.